to bring on our community producers, they also learned together with us. And I think bringing people together to learn from each other is what really makes this project special and what I want to keep going into the future. So I want to introduce our panelists today. And these are folks who have made these podcasts, and they're going to share a little bit of their process with us. We've got Stephanie DeVito. Stephanie is a writer and theater professional and a participant in the Society for Creative Anachronism. We have Denise Hall. Denise is a stay-at-home mom and owner of Decadent Soapworks, who you have had the pleasure of seeing some of her work at the back there. We also have Emma Young. Emma is a former student of the New Jersey Folk Festival at Rutgers University, and now out in the world doing amazing things as an educator. We have Maria Vivar. Maria Vivar is a leader, artist, and activist with Lazos America Unida and has done many programs all around New Brunswick and at Rutgers. We have Madeline Laura. Madeline is a folklorist and has been the arts coordinator for Passaic County Community College. And we have Nelson Baez. Nelson was the founder and director of Cimarrones, of whom we have other members here. So we'll hear from all of them today. The first thing that I wanted to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some clips from the podcast so we can all listen up to them together. And then I'm going to ask each of our artist and producer pairs some questions about how they went about making this podcast. I think when we hear podcasts, which are so ubiquitous today, we often don't really get to understand how they came to be made and how all of these voices came together and what the whole process was like. And we've been on a journey of learning that together. So if we could have our Wizard of Oz in the back play our first clip from Stephanie DeVito and Denise Hall.
Welcome to the New Jersey Folk Podcast, featuring stories and conversations about folk arts, traditional culture, and heritage in the state of New Jersey and beyond.
Oxytocin was flooding the kitchen as Denise Hall welcomed me into her home. Denise is the master soap maker behind Decadent Soapworks, but she is also a close friend. For this episode of the New Jersey Folk Festival podcast, I never considered the possibility that our conversation about soap would focus more on these feelings than anything else we could have talked about. I thought our interview would get more into the nitty-gritty of soap making. We would talk about how dangerous it is to work with lye, the surprising amounts of chemistry involved in her craft, and how Denise comes up with her crowd-pleasing scents. Although that did all come up in our nearly 3-hour conversation, everything Denise and I talked about always came back to how crafting is an opportunity to connect with something and someone more meaningfully. Using soap making, Denise has become closer to the world and her place within it. Her products reflect the phase of life she's in, while her ingredients showcase the clans she grew up around. And as her skills become stronger, so do her ties to the community she shares them with. If you're thinking that is too lofty a goal for soap to achieve, then take a listen to Denise's story. She can teach us what soap making taught her. That it's the small things in your day-to-day, the fine details and thoughtful actions that make up the best parts of our lives. So who is Denise exactly? I'll let her answer that.
So my name is Denise Hall, and I am 46. and stay-at-home mom with 2 children, a boy and a girl. And I am a crafter always, just always be crafting, always find a way to do something creative, and just trying to survive.
And Denise isn't kidding. She is always crafting. Before our interview, she took me around her new home in Lawrenceville. And let's just say that her office is a sight to behold.
So that's my personal chaos.
Oh my.
So I love this as a place to start because you bring in the story so beautifully, Stephanie. And what I wanted to ask each of our podcasting pairs is this. Podcasting is a storytelling medium in sound. And part of the project was to encourage community members and students to engage in the process of interviewing people from within and beyond their communities. So I'm wondering, what did you learn from each other in the process of doing the interview that you didn't expect, even though you're friends and you've known each other for a long time?
Well, I will start, if you don't mind, please. So one thing I found really interesting and kind of where the direction of the podcast went was I always knew Denise made soaps, like that's what she was known for in the group. But the more we talked about it, the longer and more meandering a journey artists take before they really land on their craft. So she talked about how she photography and oil paintings, and there was paper craft that went into the label making, and then there was elements of botany and gardening and learning how to work with plants and extract what you needed with them. And it was interesting that like soap was the center where you had all of these spokes kind of feeding into it, and that in a very practical artist sense made sense, but it also was creatively that way. Like it was her entire life, it was her family, it was making sure she could, provide, engaging with her friends, engaging with the world. So I think that I went in thinking I understood what soap meant to Denise as just like a practical craft, but it ended up learning so much more about her biography and like what is important to her as a person.
Yeah, the road to get there.
Denise, what was important to you about actually being able to tell your story to someone in this way?
Well, I hadn't really thought of it as a story. Like I just was kind of surviving as just day to day. I mean, as a stay-at-home mom, it was, kind of drowning in the daily chores, so to speak. But what I thought was really interesting was that when Stephanie approached me and she says, I want to ask you about this kind of stuff. It was like focused on being a woman and having my own business sort of thing. And I was like, this isn't a business, this is just a craft. It was just something fun to do, something that, like, an expression of myself. And I learned that she was very flexible because she came with all these prepared questions and I was like, nope, I'm not going to answer any of those questions. We're going to talk about this instead. And I thought it was really great to kind of self-realize that it has been a journey, and every aspect of my life from my childhood on and everything that I always wanted to do has kind of flourished in this way. How I kind of, I dip off and do a little something else, and then I come back and I do, just always crafting, always thinking of some other way to be creative.
I love that, always be crafting.
Yeah, ABC, always be crafting.
Well, thank you. We're going to come back and have more opportunities to talk to each of you, but I want to play our next clip from our next podcasting pair, Emma and Maria. So, Wizard of Oz, if you could play.
Which are placed all over the altar. These marigolds grow much more easily in Mexico than in the climate of New Jersey, and were too expensive to buy in New Brunswick. So Lazos America Unida started a marigold program in 2003 to grow their own community flowers. After a lot of hard work and steady steps towards success, in 2006 they perfected how to grow marigolds in New Jersey. But right before harvesting, their marigold program was dealt a terrible blow.
Finally, because of how we find out the right method throughout the timing and everything. In 2006, he came out and stormed a winter storm that killed our flowers. We never thought that the policy was gonna kill us.
This winter storm killed the majority of the marigold crop, and a year's worth of work. This setback was devastating for Maria and the other Oaxacan organizers who had worked so hard to provide their community with marigolds for their altars.
And the 26th, we was gonna start protecting the flowers. But in the 25th, in the night, comes this cold moment, like, and the next day we went to see the flowers. It was covered with ice. Then, the only ones who could save it was the ones inside of the Rio Green. We only got 2 at that time. So we lost like 2 times of those greenhouses. A lot of flowers, a lot of work in there. As I said, we remember that time because family and myself was involved in working every day, every afternoon in the field. And just go back and see those flowers dead. Really, we was crying whenever we can save and crying and feel bad because we lost our flowers. So that year, we don't really have a good flower.
And we have a second clip from that one to play as well.
These Day of the Dead craft traditions is to keep the same family connections in New Brunswick that she grew up with in Oaxaca. Remembering and honoring her family is what sparked her dedication to Day of the Dead traditions as a young woman, and what inspires her to keep these traditions alive now.
That way, I keep this tradition with my family. For me, that's my way to express myself, to pass the knowledge that I have from my elders, from my ancestors, from my family who passed away, that I keep teaching to the community, to everybody who wants to know about it.
On behalf of the New Jersey Folk Festival and myself, student intern Emma Young, many thanks to Maria Vivar for sharing her stories and knowledge so that this podcast could be made possible. If you would like to know more about the Oaxacan community organization mentioned in this podcast, Lazos America Unida, and their events, you can find them on Facebook at Lazos AU.
Thank you. So, Emma, you were a student when we got started, and Maria, we had been working with you and your sister Teresa on the folk festival theme for Oaxaca. So, what did you learn from each other, Emma, as you went through this process? What happened that you didn't expect?
I can speak on, I can speak on what I learned from Maria more about that, but I feel like there's just so much. I feel like when you interview somebody, you learn the whole of them, really entirely. Also, I kind of held her hostage in the interview. It was more than like an hour because I was so scared I wouldn't have enough to make a story, a narrative out of. But I think I just learned how long she had been a crafter, like how much time it takes to become as skilled as she does, but also just how long she's been working for her community. It was the 2000s when that story happened about the marigolds and the storm. And so I just realized how much of a journey she had already had before I even interviewed her, and how that influenced, all of her craft. And yeah, it was just a lot to hear and very inspiring and aspirational.
Maria, what did you learn from the process, and what did it mean to you to be able to tell your story in this way?
Well, for me, it was everything new, because I'm always behind the cameras, behind the work, always in the back. So I'm not in the front, so I'm not usually to be at the front and be the center of attention. I never feel that way. But for me, this was like a new journey, a new thing I did into my life, to talk about myself. I'll talk about my work in the community, because for me, doing these crafts is in a way to let it go, everything that you get in during doing your own work, and all the stress that you get in being an activist in the community, trying to do the right things and get resources for my community, to teach them about my culture, to keep all my traditions and learn, and that people understand that and learn from it. So for me, doing that is in a way an opportunity to share who I am and where I came from. So in that way, this is something I feel privileged to have the opportunity to share everything that I have, my knowledge, because not everybody has the opportunity to share that. In that way, I'm so happy and blessed to be able to do it, because it's a long work that we, not only me, but a lot of people that are involved in this organization that we created in that long time. So the purpose it was that, to keep on and teach and show them that we have a lot of knowledge about a lot of stuff that we can do and how we can do it. And that no matter how bad it was, the situation, that losing the flowers, we always come with a solution and have to grow up. So I feel so happy when that time my mentor, Minia, came and we supposed to do only papel picado workshops. But that day, of course, was the time that we lose the flower. And we give away the flower, even that way people took it because they put it out there. At least they have something in a home to keep that tradition with the family. But for me, it was like a time to see that there's a different ways to continue doing what you love to do and what you're supposed to teach, no matter what. So you don't have barriers, the only ones that you put yourself. And for me, having doing this is very new. As I say, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if it is correct what I'm saying, but this is new for me, and I'm so happy to be part of it. So yeah, I learned a lot.
Oh, thank you.
I think, Maria, I had so much confidence in being able to send one of my students, Emma, to do an interview with you, because I know how many events and projects you've done with students before through CLAC, the Center for Latino Arts and Culture on campus, and in your own community. You're always working with young people, so I knew you would be a natural. But I'm glad that we could do this together. Let's play our next podcast.
So it's really important for groups like ours to be able to reach those students, and if we do assemblies and things like that in different schools, it's important for us to carry that message with us. Because again, they're learning history in a unorthodox way, because they really think they're there just for the entertainment and the music. And I always tell my audiences, look, we're not here to entertain you. We're here to build community. There's a difference, we're not here just to play so you can listen to music. We're here to build community with you, to have that connection and to have an exchange. And the exchange is the music that we give you, and you come up and dance with us, that energy, but also the exchange of information that we're giving you. And hopefully you'll, even if it's just a little bit of that information, even if it's just 10, 15% of that information, at least you're going to learn something new today that you can carry forth and maybe, pass that on to others.
Thank you for listening to the New Jersey Folk Podcast.
Okay, so our last podcast pair, I'm delighted that this brought you together in some really new and exciting ways. Madeline, what did you learn through the process as you did this interview with Nelson?
Well, I learned a ton about Nelson because I met him in October of 2021 through work that I was doing here in Middlesex with the folk department at Middlesex Arts Institute. So I saw him, working in schools with kids, and the first time I met him, here's this pretty unassuming looking guy, like you don't know what to expect, and then 5 minutes into his program, the entire room is glued, to him. They're engaged. I got to see what happens over a residency, how kids really change and take shape and how it impacts them. So that was really what sparked me to pick him, to interview him. And I was like, well, who is this guy? Where did he come from? What is bomba? What is this culture and genre? And in the interview is where I got to understand how he got involved with it, his upbringing, how his mentors opened the door for him and accepted him into the community. And that allowed Nelson to then become a mentor himself. He went on to take on so many students that joined his group, students that he's worked with in programs and schools who have subsequently gone on to become advocates. So that kept coming up in our interview, and really I just learned the power of community and what happens when you find something that you're passionate about, pursue it, and rather than gatekeep, you share it, and it becomes a tool to connect with people in ways that you never imagined.
Nelson, you've been doing public programs for a long time, but what was it like for you to do this interview and to work with Madeline?
Well, this interview was different because it started out as an interview, but then it turned into something else. It morphed. And I was used to interviews, but not used to this process because it did evolve organically. It was in the way she posed the questions. Her interest kind of guided me along. And the more she spoke, the more I realized that she really wanted to learn. That she wasn't just trying to check some boxes off and provide a certain amount of information, generic information, that she really was interested in what was going on. And when I first got involved in Bomba, I was told, well, this is a way of life. I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I said, no, I want to drum. They said, no, this is a way of life. If you get into Bomba, this is a way of life. And then eventually I figured out what that was. And it is a way of life because it's a tradition, and it's something that we're able to carry on. When we talk about Bomba, we talk about the spirit of the drum. We talk about the drum is made of wood. The wood is made from a tree. The tree is not dead, the tree is dormant. So the wood on the drum is not dead, but it's dormant. And we talk about the skin on top, which came from a goat. And that again, we don't believe that that's dead, it's dormant. So that when we play the drums, we awaken the spirit of the tree. We awaken the spirit of the goat. And in connection, it awakens the spirit of the drum. And by doing that, we connect with our ancestors. And we honor our ancestors by doing this. So for me, it's about passing it forward. And that's just my goal in life, is to continue to do this. And the important thing I found, again, in speaking with Madeline, was that I realized that this was a totally different venue that was really not available to us before, because the only way you got it was if you came to one of our performances. Where now, this is out there for people who, I don't even know how far this is going to get, but podcast, again, for me anyways, it's something new. We didn't have podcasts when I was coming up. We didn't know what a podcast was. And but then when you start to listen to podcasts and how interesting they are and how readily available they are, and how you can listen to them all the time, whether you're in the car, whatever's happening, we realize what a huge audience you have and how cross-culturally you can deliver your message, which is the important thing. Because Bomba is not just a Puerto Rican thing, okay? This we find, and I love when I go to, we do programs where there are very few Latinos. Because when I see people who have no connection whatsoever with my background, how they get involved, and I say, yeah, okay, you're hooked, okay? You're feeling the drums, it's in your system, because we all have it, it's just awakening that as well. And so hopefully, we'll get an opportunity to share that. So with Madeline, as we went on, I realized that she really was more than just interested in doing this podcast. And ultimately, I kind of threw a little hook out there with a little shiny object on it to see what would happen, and Madeline bit and slowly reeled her in. And Madeline is now no longer a podcaster or the interviewer. Madeline is now a lead singer in the group of Cimarrones. So, and that took a very short period of time for that organic transformation to take place. So that to me was, and I really got to learn a lot about Madeline, about family, because Bomba is really more family. We're a family. When you come to us, it's all about family. And when you come to my house, we always have Bomba. We play very, very little, if any, recorded music. And you come to the house, the drums come out, we start dancing, everybody sings, everybody dances, and we do that. So, so for me, that was a very important thing to learn about where Madeline was coming from, what she was looking for now, where she's ultimately going with this.
What's your address, Nelson?
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to invite all of you to continue with the Bomba with us after this is all over.
Oh yeah, there will be dancing shortly.
Oh yeah, we're going to get your cop today.
I wanted to ask though, I think what's really beautiful about this project and about what I hope will continue as we move into the future is the opportunity that each of you have had to connect with each other in doing more than just what a journalist does, which is going and finding a story, as part of your profession. You really had the opportunity to broaden your own lives and connections and learn from each other and even become part of a new musical community. And so I see this project as exactly that, an opportunity not just to make a media story, but to make community connections. But it's still a media story. And one of the big challenges that we faced was in figuring out how to make a media story that sounds legible in the world of podcasting. And I wanted to ask our podcasters, so after you went and did these beautiful, amazing interviews, then you had to come back to the virtual cutting room, the editing room, where you had to listen to these interviews, which were an hour or more in length, and you cut them down to, between around 10 minutes each is the average length of these podcasts. I wanted to ask you, what did you learn about the art of storytelling in this process of taking this interview and then turning it into a story? Either you could talk about the storytelling itself, or the process of actually working with the audio, whichever speaks to you. Does anyone want to jump on the mic? Go for it, Stephanie. Yes.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I definitely went into this thinking I was Allie Ward and I was gonna make an hour and 20-minute podcast episode. So we had 3 hours of conversation. Part of that is because we know each other and it meandered. So conceptually, when I trying to find the story, I had to remind myself to kill your darlings. And just because I liked a moment, or when I was interviewing something struck with me, doesn't mean that it translates the same way when you try to put yourself in the position of someone who doesn't know Denise, wasn't there for that conversation. I had to ask myself, okay, I love this explanation of how to extract dandelion for coloring, but does it move the story along in a meaningful way? Are people gonna really feel like it connects things, or do I just really like that? And as a technical element, I really wish I had 2 microphones, because Denise would say something and everyone has response noises, so I'd be like, and I laugh very loudly too. So there were moments where I found it difficult to edit myself out of it because we were all on the same audio feed. So if you're ever making a podcast, several different mics are definitely going to be your friend.
Emma, did you have any thoughts on the whole process?
Yes, definitely. I have a ton of thoughts about how difficult I found it. The interview was lovely, of course, but once I had the raw interview, which was a wonderful experience, I was like, oh, I enjoyed myself too much. It's more than an hour. And I think I also really pushed it. I made it 14 minutes. I was like, how do I cut this? It's all so good. But I think what was really important for storytelling, at least, and thank goodness for Blake, because she really helped me with that, was just finding a way to take all of Maria's life and experience and make it into a narrative that somebody could follow in 14 minutes. And also, I guess, finding a catalyst for her creating her craft. So I sort of centered a lot of it on the storm that ruined the marigold crop, and then moved on from there. So that was the storytelling aspect, and I had a lot of help from Blake and Dr. Kennedy about that. And then for technical things, I really wrestled a lot with adding any sound effects to certain parts. I tried to make it very deliberate, but I really decided when I was adding things that I wanted to make sure it never overshadowed Maria's actual audio. It always was just uplifting whatever emotion or story she was telling. So that was really hard in the beginning, but it got easier the more that you pick and choose and are decisive about it. But it was a really good experience, especially for the audio editing. So that was very fulfilling.
Madeline, did you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts. The process itself, it was tough because it was all a learning curve. From doing the actual interview to recording, turning it into a script and so on. That was all new. Working with the audio, that was a big challenge. And I was fortunate enough that I was working with Sally Vandewater at the time here at the Middlesex Arts Institute, and they allowed me to use their conference room to record. and she had a wonderful Zoom mic with 2 microphones that she let us use, and it worked out phenomenally. So in that aspect, I got very lucky, but once Nelson and I got off on this tangent, we also had over an hour of material to use, which is where the difficulties started coming in. You know, having a lot of material is a good thing until you realize I have too much. And where I got stuck was the story could have gone any which way, depending on how I carved the content. And that became very stressful to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? What's the point? And I consulted with my good friend, Susan Ballack, who's also my boss, but my good friend, and she gave me some really good advice and told me, you know, you're making it about you, and you need to let Nelson tell his story. So you're the vehicle through which he's doing that. And once I got it into that perspective and I took a back seat with you know, what I thought I needed to say, I went back into the interview with a weed whacker, and I was just cutting out anything that didn't serve the story that he was trying to tell. And you know, although mine was, I think, the longest that was submitted, so sorry about that, but I did my best, and I just tried to form a trajectory, like, you know, you guys were saying, of how somebody can piece it together, how things started, how it evolved, and ultimately what it means now.
It was a business, it was more of a, something that was, again, a way of life. So I really believe that it's a very good way of getting the artist to be able to express what it's all about, because I think when you see us as artists, and depending on what your perception of an artist means to you, that's the only thing you see. So I think the podcast kind of pulls that shade down, you know, and you're able to see more behind the scene, and you see what the artists are really trying to put forth.
For me, I can say there's another, I found that there's another way to show the people and go forward to let it know you, let know your work, and it's another way to also get another people to get into it, so everybody learns their story, to know how they started, because there is a lot of people in the community who has been doing a lot of work, but nobody knows about it because they don't have the opportunity to share it and let the people know your work. So for me, this is, as I say, I'm blessed and I'm happy to be part of it, and give me the opportunity to share and know more people, because even now I know him for more time, we share a bomba time in the moment. You really become part of it. Even that's not part of my community or my culture, but I like to know more about it, and let's do it together. My kids play it and dance it, and just to have the opportunity to do it is a blessing. So yeah, I found that it's a nice opportunity to all other people to show up and doing it, because it's exciting. You listen to yourself and you feel like, really, this is how we're doing it, and I never have a chance to hear myself talking and sharing what I love to do, because this is, I'm not doing it. It's like with this pandemic, I found that like it was for me like at the professional time, because I love to interact with people and always doing something with the kids and showing and educating themselves about traditions that they don't even know if their parents has it. So for me that way is like, oh my God, I was so depressed, I have to say it. But now coming back is keeping me alive and giving more motivation to continue doing it. And I'm so excited to be outside with people and be sure to see people that I don't see for a long time. So yeah, things, I'm so happy to be here, and let's do a podcast.
Denise, did you have any closing thoughts?
I don't really, but I think I always have something to talk about. So Stephanie had 3 hours, and I think it was longer than that, because I mean, the minute she walked in my house, she was recording, and I was like, but I'm just giving you the tour, you know, it's a new house. So. But I always have something to say.
Well, I want to thank all of you for taking this time to share your experience with us. Let's give everyone a round of applause. I think we might be able to use this percussive instrument as we move into the dance percussion. Nelson and Madeline and Cimarrones, can you join us for some music and dance? And audience, it's going to be participatory, so get ready to be a part of the action.
Thank you. Bravo.
Hundreds of rhythms in bomba, and they're played differently all throughout the island of Puerto Rico. And so the dancer will come out, depending on what the rhythm is, and they will dance to that rhythm. And when the dancer now wants to start a conversation, because each dancer, whether it's he or she, will have a conversation. And that conversation is usually with this drum, the subidor. Subidor or primo. To subir means to raise, the subidor means to raise the energy. So as the dancer begins to dance, they have a conversation. The dancer communicates to the drummer by doing what we call piquetes. And piquetes are any part of the body movement, and you'll see, we'll give you a little demo that you may have, and it's arbitrary, whatever you feel like doing at the time. And then the drummer responds to you by doing what's called a repique. And a repique is different sounds that are made by the drummer to try to mimic what you're trying to do. And it's a conversation. So the first thing that we do is we have what's called a saludo. Saludo means greeting. So you would come out, the first thing we do is a paseo. So a paseo is you come out, you kind of stroll around, you're trying to get your thoughts together, what is it I want to do, or not. And then at some point, you start to dance, and when you're ready to have this conversation, you give the drummer saludo, a nod, it could be anything else, letting this drummer know, hey, I want to have a conversation. And then as you start to dance, then the drummer starts to try and mark your movements simultaneously. Not before you do them or after, so this drummer is constantly always trying to guess what it is that you're going to do next and tries to mark it. So we're going to start by doing a little demo. Magda, we're going to do one of the rhythms called Sika, and give you a little demo of what that might look like with the conversation. It's all about the dancing. So where it's not about all the drumming and the singing and all that. So we're going to have singing. And the way it works also is we have a maraca, which is a gourd. You hear it playing in the background. We have a lead singer, and we have a chorus. So the lead singer sings. It's a call and response. And if you can pick up on the coro, you can sing as well. By the way, you don't have to speak Spanish to learn how to sing coro. Because I've had 3 lead singers who didn't speak a word of Spanish, but they learned how to sing in Spanish. They didn't know what they were singing, but they learned how to sing in Spanish. And I would write it out for them phonetically, and they learned it. People refused to believe that they were not bilingual, okay? So we're gonna expect you to come out and dance with us. And if you don't come out, then we'll come out and get you. And like I like to say, I have a premium AAA service, so we can get a tow truck here and just pluck you right out of your seat, okay? So the first rhythm we're gonna do is called, the first dance we're gonna do is called Cometa. Cometa means comet, and the rhythm is called Rule, R-U-L-E. And this particular song talks about a passing of an elder, transitioning. So it talks about the person gets up in the morning, an elderly woman gets up in the morning, and then if you want to see her, you'll see the comet as the comet is passing, as you see the tail of the comet. So if you ever want to see her, if you ever want to remember this person, all you need to do is look up into the sky, and you see the comet, you see this person. So it's a way of us always trying to remember our ancestors, okay? Finding a way to stay connected with them, even if they're physically not here, okay? Down.
Se la llevó, el rabo del cometa se la llevó.
Se la llevó. right, y'all, it's gonna be your turn now. Okay? So now we're gonna transition to a rhythm, which is it's a sibling, we like to say, of that rhythm. And this one's called a sika. And this is kind of like a lively rhythm. It just talks about that, we're traveling around and we're just looking for someone's home, so we just kind of go there and chill, and we're knocking on the door and say, hey, we just want to come hang out and do some bomba in your house, so don't be stressed, don't be worried. We're not here to, do you any harm. We just want to dance some bomba. So now we get an opportunity. This rhythm is called sika, and sika is probably one of the more popular rhythms that's played in bomba. So you get an opportunity to come out and dance with us, okay? Now, as you can see, the guys come out there and do their thing. If you want to use a handkerchief, you don't have to. The women, you may or may not need, you'll see the Magda used a kerchief, a scarf, yeah, kerchief, yeah, my bad. It's tiny. So use a scarf, and just mimicking the skirt. But you don't necessarily have to do that, because in certain parts of the island, like on the West Coast in Mayagüez, the women don't mimic dancing with the skirt. They just, use their hands. So we're gonna do a song called Ron de la Paloma, okay? So here we go. Señora de casa, no se asuste usted, andamos buscando sala para bailar. Señora de casa, no se apure usted, andamos buscando el ron de la paloma. all like really nervous about coming out here, huh?
Are you feeling it? Are you feeling it?
Yeah. So now we're gonna go with our final song. We're watching the time, and we have this next song is called a seis corrido. So seis basically means six. You'll hear people say seis, but it really means the rhythm. When they say a seis, si caes a seis, cuembes a seis. So seis corrido. Corrido means running. So what happens is in Loíza, which is the blackest part of Puerto Rico, is right on the coast. And the reason for that is because that's where the ships dropped off the slaves. And if we do have some other type of a workshop for something, we'll explain all that stuff. But one at a time, how all that came. So in Puerto Rico, that was the blackest part, is the coast, because the slave ships dropped off the slaves, and they never really traveled further into the island. But as you go deeper into the island, you see there's the lighter skinned, like my brother Louis here. We go back to second grade together. You know, he's my blue-eyed, blonde brother. Okay, so he's a little taller than me, right? That's the only difference here. So yeah, we both Puerto Rican on both sides, but this is the difference that you get because we have the Taíno, the indigenous culture of Puerto Rico, the Spanish who came and colonized Borinquen, which was the real name of the island, Borinquen, not Puerto Rico. They renamed it, and then the Africans. So we have three bloodlines: the Taíno, the Spanish, and the African. So now we're going to do seis corrido, and in Loíza everything is on steroids. Okay, so there's nothing that they play there that's slow. So this is basically a rhythm that's called the seis corrido, and we're going to do Comet Candela, which is a song that our podcast started with, which Madeline picked as the beginning song. Okay, so we're going to start in roulette, and then we're going to transition into seis corrido.
Candela.